Hi, welcome to your shipper update. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Anthony Smith. Anthony, what's going on, my friend?
So, Michael, good to be back with you here.
It is great to be back. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. So what we have here is kind of what we're doing in the previous weeks, and it's looking ahead at what's going to be opening up or released this upcoming week. So what we have behind me here is the ISM PMI and a couple of components from it. So as you know, the ISM PMI based around 50, anything above 50 is indicative of expansion, while anything below 50 is contractions. And it's a diffusion index survey based. So looking at this one, we have manufacturing new orders and backlogs. And so this is going to be one of the few components I'm going to be looking at closely. Yesterday, I talked about pricing because there's so much pricing pressures building up within manufacturing still, even though we've come down from record highs.
Right.
It's still very much high, still expanding, still growing at a rapid pace. So this is the other segments that I'm going to be looking at, new orders and backlogs. So the talking point there is even though we might see some downward movement in overall production, some slight slowdowns, this is still going to kind of keep us ramped up on the manufacturing side. So we're looking at the backlogs. We're seeing that it's still well above that 50 threshold. We're looking at new orders. We're seeing that it's still above that 50 threshold, still at 64.9. So that's showing us that there's still a lot of momentum, still a lot of gas left in the tank, even as we moderate throughout the end of the year going into 2022.
Yeah, so production may not be as robust as it was, but the demand for it is
The demand
still
for it is going
there.
to keep
So
it ramped up.
we have more. It's like shipping, right? There's
Yeah.
more demand than you have capacity for manufacturing right at this particular moment, right?
Exactly.
I guess that has something to pressure on pricing or something.
There is a lot of upper pricing pressure, and exactly right. We're seeing that in effect right now. And good news is on the consumer side, the ease is some easing going on in those price increases, but they're still here nonetheless. We're still seeing consumers paying more money for goods, and sometimes more money or the same amount of money for the same goods. Shrinkflation might be coming soon. And so we're looking at that being a big factor, especially when you look at consumer goods, grocery stores. And a lot of the times it's not that there's run-ups or certain goods just being snatched off the shelves like we saw earlier on in the pandemic. A lot of times, as you know, there's just such a strain in the supply chain that's really limiting those goods from hitting those shelves. So
Yeah, they're just not there.
just not there. And so one of the other areas that we're going to be looking at that's going to be updated in the upcoming week is going to be construction spending, and that's in our next chart here. And what we have in our construction spending, I'm going to take a little bit of a further look instead of just looking at the upcoming week, but the trends coming up in the coming year or so. And so in the green line here, we have, of course, construction spending for non-residential. That's going to be a lot smaller of a segment. In the blue line here, we have construction spending for residential, of course, going to be making up a lot larger component. And we've seen the downward movement of the green line. I think that's expected for that non-res sector.
What is in non-res? What is that?
So that's going to be offices. That's going to be anything that's going to be public spending. It's going to be anything that's not house. So highway, street, all that stuff is going to be in non-res.
Warehouses, manufacturing facilities, all that's in there, right? Okay.
Correct. And so I think what we're going to see in the upcoming year, in 2022, is an increase in this green line here for non-residential. I think we're going to see a lot more pricing or a lot more components go into that segment. So, of course, infrastructure bill is going to be a long process. It's not going to be overnight, but I think that's going to be one of those industries.
It's going to be an uptick and a slow burn uptick, right?
Slow burn. That's exactly right.
It's going to like raise the floor from here to here type of thing.
Yeah,
right?
It's definitely going to be an increase. But like you said, a slow burn. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be a switch that just gets flipped on, but definitely something that's going to contribute. I definitely think there's going to be more potential office spaces, even though we're not seeing that this year. It's not going to be something that's going to be a booming trend or anything like that. But I think we're going to see some office spaces ease into that growth phase once more, as we probably hopefully get through the end of all these variables or variants, I should say. Hopefully that's around soon.
From your lips to God's ears. Let's get to the bottom of this. Right?
And so, but the big contributor, as you mentioned, warehouses. That's going to be a huge contributor there as we're seeing more facilities really being ramped up, especially with more technology entering them.
Is that telling right now? I mean, the pressure for more warehousing is on now.
Yeah.
And you still see this downward trend.
Yeah.
That means everything else is just really bottomed out.
Exactly.
Nobody's building offices anywhere, basically.
Exactly. And so, like I said, I don't think offices is going to be a huge thing. Maybe it's going to contribute somewhat, but warehouses, that's definitely where a lot of the increases are going to be.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony. We'll catch up with you a little bit later in the show, I hope. Always a pleasure.